So there is this process in life called sieving. C-E-I-V-I-N-G. And here's how that works. It is the process by which we create our experience. It goes like this. First, we give birth to the experience. That is, we call it forth out of the nothing, out of the ether. And that is when we conceive. We literally conceive. That is, we give it life. And that's the first step in the process of creation. We conceive of such a thing. Everything in this room was at some point conceived of by another. We were all conceived, of course. But so is everything else in this room. Somebody conceived of that microphone. Somebody conceived of these poinsettias, the whole. Somebody had the idea somewhere, sometime, someplace. And that idea, this carpet, this stage, whatever, turned into what you're looking at here. So nothing that we see exists, or would exist, if it had not first been a thought in the mind and the heart of somebody, someplace, somewhere. That thought, that first thought, is called the moment of conception. It is the human penchant that as soon as we give birth to any thought or idea, we look at it and we assess it, or to use a more dynamite phrase, we judge it. That is, we look at it and we say, is that a good idea or a bad idea? And we start judging it almost instantly. And you will catch yourself doing this. You'll have a good idea. You'll have it. Anyone who's older than 6 years old is familiar with the experience of having had a brainstorm. You know, just a real lightning bolt kind of a moment, a brainstorm, and instantly you start deciding, oh, a great idea, or that'll never work. One or the other, but you start judging it almost at once, yes? And many of us dismiss our own brainstorms because in the moment after we had them, we start giving ourselves all the reasons why they can't possibly work, it's not going to happen, why would you even think of such a thing, etc., etc. So we dismiss it out of hand even before it barely gets out of our mind, much less out of our mouth. And so what we do with what we have conceived is that we hold a point of view about it. That is called perceiving. It is when we perceive what we have conceived. So first we have conception, and then we have perception. After you perceive what you have conceived, you experience it again in a whole new way. Different from the original giving birth to, different from the purity of the original birthing, but covered by and influenced heavily by your perception of it. So you experience what you gave birth to a second time, and that second experience comes a nanosecond from the first one. I mean, there's not a paper thin space of time between them. You think of a thought, and immediately you have a thought about the thought. That is, you have a perception about the conception, and so therefore you receive it. That is what you receive in your life. You have received what you had conceived because of what you perceived. Do you understand? And that is what you receive. Very, very, very few people experience what they conceive. Almost all people experience what they receive. That is, they receive in their life what they conceived through the prism of their perceiving. Depends on where you're standing. What's that line from that you just sang from that song? Depends on where you... The point of view depends upon where you're standing. Where you stand determines what you see. Now, if you're not careful, and if your perception is distorted, you will not only receive something totally different from what you conceived, that is, you will get something totally different from what you gave birth to, it'll be so distorted that you will actually deceive yourself. You got it? That is, you will take away what you gave birth to. You will actually deceive it. And that is the moment of your great deception. So we have perception that follows conception. The giving birth of the great Creator. The great Creator gives birth to everything. And so we conceive. We have conception. But then we immediately judge it. We perceive it. If we judge it positively, we will receive it in a way that's close to the original thought or the original idea. If our perception is distorted or if it's negative, we will receive something else entirely different. If our perception is really distorted and very negative, we will actually move into deception. That is, we will deceive what we conceived, or we will undo what we did in the purity of the moment of birth. Follow that? Now that is an elegant, elegant design. I have not come across in the English language a way to describe the process by which we destroy or disassemble what we have assembled in our imagining. As elegant as that. We imagine these wonderful, wonderful things in our head. We dream these wonderful dreams. We think these wonderful thoughts. And then we go about disassembling them right on the spot. In the moments after we have them. And that happened to me in my life, not just about the world around me, but to a large degree about my own life. I would have an idea about myself. That is, I would conceive of myself in a particular way. And I would give birth to myself again. I would be reborn in my own enthusiasm about who I am and what I could become. But by golly, no sooner would I have that great thought about who I am and what I could bring to the world, I'd start telling myself in the very next moment, oh, bullshit, cut it out, stop it. Delusions of grandeur and all the rest. I talked myself out of it before I even got a chance to tell anyone else what the ideal was. Anybody ever had that experience? Hello. Very, very common. So what's really magnificent is when you can have an idea that's so stupendous and then stay with it and follow through with it. And then that original dream becomes reality. It takes great courage to do that. And it takes great vision to do that.